Sup, y'all? This is Patrick Allan Ryan, also known as Huge Cow Patty, or HCP for short. Welcome to the fourth episode of the Patrick Allan Ryan Show. How you guys doing out there? It's good to be here. I've had a good day so far, actually. It's noon at the time that I'm recording this on July 14th. Oh, shoot, that reminds me. I need to go get the free Xbox Live Gold games that expire today. Or they expire tomorrow. I don't know. I better do it today, though. I'm going to make me a note about that. Okay, anyway. Yeah, the show. Sorry, I got off on a tangent there because I was looking at the date. So, this show is all about me and what I've got going on in my life. Now you know, if this is the first time you've tuned in, that I play video games. Because I've got an Xbox. I'm console agnostic. I have an Xbox. I have a PlayStation. I do Nintendo. I do it all. PC gaming is something that I do now. Steam and my wallet don't always get along because Steam... Well, I mean, I guess you could say they do get along since Steam's like, hey, here's 300 games for $2. And I'm all like, buy them all. No, I've actually never spent that kind of money on Steam, at least not all at once. And then, of course, there's Humble Bundles. But I've been reining that in. Actually, I've had to rein it in because I'm married now, and I can't just spend money without talking to her, at least. So that's, that's something that has changed a little bit. But anyway, the show is very conversational. And by conversational, I mean I talk to a microphone and you listen to me. Hopefully, as time goes on, you folks will start talking back to me. And you'll be tweeting me and leaving comments in the comment section down here on YouTube. I'm looking forward to that. I'd really love to engage my audience. I feel like the best shows are shows where you engage your audience. So, anyway, let's dive right in. Let's dive right into this. So, I've been playing Pokemon Go, as I'm sure most of you know, because everyone's playing Pokemon Go. If you've got a smartphone, you're probably playing this game. Even if you don't like Pokemon. Like, I've met people that I'm like, you don't look like someone who plays games. But I think that's what's awesome about this game, is that it's bringing people together. I've met so many people. I've probably met more people in the days since this thing launched than I have in the last year of my life before that. Now, of course, when I say meet people, I mean, like, I bump into them and I talk to them for a few minutes and then I leave. So it's not like I made a friend or anything, especially since most of the time, at least so far, I've only run into one person more than once. Most everybody else, it's, it's one and done kind of thing. But anyway, I talked about the game and how I've been playing it yesterday. What I want to talk about today, Pokemon Go, according to Google Trends, is now more popular than internet pornography. Guys, that's huge. When I was reading those stats about internet porn just from one website on my first and second episodes. So you guys know how big of a deal internet pornography is. And now Pokemon Go, one application by a little Japanese company called Nintendo and a little Google spinoff called Niantic and another little Japanese company called the Pokemon Company. This one game is now bigger than internet pornography. And guys, I think that's awesome. I mean, would I rather that the thing that is bigger than internet porn be internet searches for church or, something spiritual? Sure. Of course I do. But, I mean, at this point, I'll take anything I can get. I think that's awesome that Pokemon Go has been like this. Now, of course, the game just came out, so it's going to be... it'll tail off after a while, because that's how games are. I mean, it's not that the game is bad. It's just that, right when a game comes out, you get a lot of people who are curious about it, especially when it's free. a lot of people are curious about it, and it's real easy for them to just go download it, and it takes, a couple hundred megabytes or whatever, maybe even a gig on their phone. If they don't like it, then they stop playing it and they get rid of it. And that's what happens. That's how even $60 games go like that. You'll get Call of Duty will be the big thing for about 2 or 3 weeks. And then, after a while, people will be like, oh, okay, I got my $60 worth out of that. I'm going to move on to something else. So that will happen to this, of course, but it's fantastic. I think this is great that this has been so popular, and that it's not something that's, if it were the next Call of Duty is even though you play online, it's still something that you're sitting on your butt in your house, and maybe you've got a headset on, and you're talking about doing unspeakable things to people's grandmothers. That's what that kind of game is. And if you like that, I'm not just because I made a joke about the kind of person that plays it. I don't mean everyone's like that. I used to enjoy the game, and honestly, probably still would if it weren't for the fact that I have a lot of other things going on in my life. But yeah, this game, it's getting people out there. People are walking. People are getting exercise and fresh air to go catch little fictional creatures, and it's amazing. I love it. I think this is really this is the positive side of video game and geek culture, is that it's very social, and that it can be very social. I mean, a lot of video games are very, I like playing role-playing games like Final Fantasy and stuff, and those are very much built around the idea of you sitting down and dedicating 30 to 40 hours of your life alone with this thing, which a lot of people would look down on. But how long did it take some of you to read a Harry Potter book? Let's say it only took you 2 or 3 hours to read a Harry Potter book, and you're like, well, that's not that bad. Yeah, but there's 8 of those. No, I'm sorry. There's 8 movies. There's 7 of the books, because they split the last movie up into 2, or the last book up into 2 movies. So yeah, it's sitting down reading a book. You could. Anyway, I don't want to get into defending video games. I'm sure I will do that one day soon, but that's not what I brought this up for. I brought this up because Pokemon Go, more popular according to Google Trends than internet porn searches, and if anybody would know, would be Google. I'm fairly certain Google makes up something like 90% of all search engine traffic online. Because Google's a verb now. You Google things. You don't search things. You Google things. And for a while, Microsoft tried real hard to get Bing to be that. Like, oh, you Bing it. And what I mean by try hard is you could watch certain television shows where everything that they were using were Microsoft products, and some police officer would whip out his Windows phone, which no one has, and he would Bing something. And they would say, like, oh, just Bing that. And, it sounded ridiculous. Although, to be fair, I'm sure, hey, just Google that sounded pretty stupid 15 years ago. So, who knows? All right, Reclaimer. Gonna talk about Reclaimer some more. That's yes, the show is about me, and it's about what I got going on in my life, but this is it's a sneaky way for me to get people talking about the porn epidemic in this country and the porn epidemic in this world. I'm not gonna lie to you. That's exactly what the show is. I hope that you come, that you came here because you were interested in hearing about what was going on in my life, and then you stayed because you learned something about pornography in this country that you didn't know, and now you want to know how to help. So yes, I did go there. I was talking to my wife just a few minutes ago. Earlier today when I was like, okay, I need to talk about this, and I've done 4 of these 4 days in a row. There's only so much talking about internet porn you can do. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's hard to come up with stuff. You feel like you start repeating yourself, and I guess repeating myself is important because people need to know about this. But it's nice to have something new to talk about. So anyway, my wife, she's listened to the last few episodes, and sorry, it's so unprofessional of me to be yawning here. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so I'm talking to my wife earlier, and she's been listening to these shows, and she was saying to me, she goes, "Babe," because that's what she calls me. She calls me babe, and I like it. She calls me babe, and she says, "Babe, now that I know how big of a problem this is for women," because she didn't know. She thought, just like everybody else, that this is something that guys deal with, and this isn't something that women deal with. She goes, "Babe, now that I know about this, about the women, I wonder how much bigger that number actually is." Because, of course, these studies rely on people confessing. I mean, anonymously, of course, but they have to be willing to check that box on that survey that, yes, I am a woman, yes, I fit into this age demographic, and I use pornography X number of times a day, or X number of times a week, or X number of times a month, or whatever it is. They still have to tell the truth. And, a man is probably way more likely to admit, maybe not publicly, but anonymously, way more likely to admit that he's got a porn problem. And even, honestly, even publicly, because the media has kind of conditioned us to think that porn is just something guys do, and that it's okay, and that people need to get over it. You've got, like, 2.5 Men. And I used to work for a CBS affiliate, and so we aired it every Monday. And then after a while, it moved a day or something. But anyway, what day it aired is not important. We aired it every day, or every week. And I remember seeing it when Charlie Sheen was still on the show, and it basically made his character's sex addiction. The show never called it that, but if you were like a psychologist or something, you studied him, you would come to the conclusion pretty easily that Charlie Harper, who was played by Charlie Sheen, was a sex addict. And it was the punchline of the show. And in fact, his lifestyle of sleeping with a different woman every single episode versus his brother's lifestyle of wanting to find someone to commit, Charlie's lifestyle was always portrayed as being, this is the life. This is what every man dreams of. This is what every man wakes up in the morning and wants to happen to them. And he has reached the pinnacle of manhood. Now, let me be fair. The show did, to a point, show or display that Charlie's life was empty. I think, and I'm careful to point this out because a lot of Christians who develop an opinion about these things, and I'm not going to call anybody out, but there's certain organizations out there that they would just write the show off immediately as, oh, the show just glorifies sex. And yes, they're right, it does do that. But if you actually watch it, and I did watch it mostly because I had to, but if you watch it, you'll see that the show did a little bit of kind of showing that Charlie was alone and his life was empty. It certainly wasn't the focus of the show, and it was certainly, it wasn't even an afterthought. It was almost non-existent, but to claim that it wasn't there would be false. And so I want to make sure that I'm being fair to the show and giving it credit where credit's due, even if that is a very tiny, tiny, tiny amount of credit. But anyway, 2.5 Men's not the only show that does this. I'm trying to think of How I Met Your Mother was a show that I actually liked, and I've seen every episode of it. But the character Barney Stinson was a lot like Charlie. He woke up every day, and his life goal was to have sex with as many women as he possibly could. Now, that show did a much better job of showing that he was empty and he was alone and he hated to a point that he was like that, and the character went through an evolution and a change by the time the show was over. And so I want to point that out. But for, that show was on the air something like 9 years, and for at least 6 or 7 of those, Barney Stinson's, like, what made him funny was that he was a womanizer. It also made it funny that he was played by Neil Patrick Harris, and Neil Patrick Harris is super gay. And so watching a gay guy play a womanizing heterosexual is, I can see why that has it's funny. I'm just going to admit it. I liked it. I thought it was funny. But I want to admit now that, maybe it shouldn't be funny to me. It's because it was normalizing his mistreatment of women. And so, yeah, so anyway, I kind of got off on a tangent, but how I got on this tangent, what I was talking about, that, men might be a lot more willing to admit publicly that they look at porn because it's socially acceptable for a man to look at porn. It really is. And it's not socially acceptable for a woman to look at porn. So anyway, my wife was bringing up the fact that, it reportedly 24% of women in the United States look at porn, but that number is probably higher because who knows how many women lied on their survey about it. So she asked me, she goes, should I get involved with this? And I told her, I said, I always visioned, hun, that you would be a part of this. But, right now, the ministry is not self-sustaining. It's not making any money. It's not in a position where we could both do this full time. Now, that doesn't mean she can't get involved. This is definitely a conversation that I want to have with her because I love the idea of the two of us tackling this problem together. Not just because I can help men and she can help women, but we as a couple could help other couples who are dealing with one or both of them being addicted to sex, but the two of them wanting the relationship to survive this addiction. So it just made me so happy to hear her ask if she should be involved and if she could be involved. And that's something I think that now that I know that she wants to, we're going to discuss here very soon. If not today, we might even talk about it tonight when she gets home from work. But, that's out there. Ladies, if there's any ladies listening to this, we know this isn't just a male problem. And we want you to know that one way or another, we're going to get you some help. It might take a little while longer than it takes to get the men help, just because, this is something that I'm heading up, and I don't, it's not wise for me to be dealing directly with women who are dealing with this problem. And I talked about why in an earlier episode. So this is definitely something that, I want to bring other women into the ministry, my wife, and anybody else that God calls to do this. It's something we want to do. So ladies, we haven't forgotten you. We know you're there, and we want to help you. But we want to make sure we do it properly, because if we don't do it properly, we could make it worse, and no one wants that. So anyway, that's where that's headed. We're also, I'm going to be designing today a business card and like a pamphlet so I can start handing it out, and trying to be present at events. I don't know exactly what those look like yet. Going back to Pokemon Go, I just spoke with the pastor of my parents' church. They are a Pokestop in Pokemon Go. Unfortunately, the church I go to is not anything. I don't know why. I don't know how Niantic and the Pokemon Company and Nintendo came up with what was going to be a location in the game. I have absolutely no idea how they did that. I assume it got something to do with Google Maps data. And maybe it's just that my church doesn't have accurate Google Maps data. I don't know. But my parents' church is a Pokestop, and the church directly across from them is a gym. The post office just up the street from them is a gym. There's a couple other Pokestops, within 2 or 3 minute walking distance of their church. So what we want to do, and I talked to y'all about this yesterday. Was we want to take advantage of that. We want to set up like a watering station with some water bottles, maybe some lemonade, and engage the community. It's not like a let's bait them, even though it sounds very much like that. It's not a hey, let's lure these people in and then we'll cram Jesus down their throat. That's not what this is about, and that's not helpful to anybody. But it is an opportunity to just let people know, hey, this church is here. There's a Christian community here that wants to be involved. And, just help people and talk with people. And, who knows? Maybe we'll meet somebody who needs something. And then we can fulfill that need. Ministering to people is not 100% about just sharing the gospel. And by sharing the gospel, I mean preaching at people. Sometimes ministering to people is just being there for them. Just providing them with a meal when they need a meal. Or providing them with water when they need water, or discovering that someone is about to get kicked out of their house, and well, hey, this guy's looking for a roommate, and that's what this is about. It's about showing the love of Christ, but it's about showing the love of Christ the way that Christ did it, and Christ reserved his like super Christian stories for the disciples. Very rarely did you see instances of Jesus speaking publicly where he's, cramming things down people's throats. He did that to his disciples because that's what the disciples are for. And today, that's what followers of Christ are for. You cram things down the throats of people who are already following Christ because they need to know this stuff. But when it comes to people who aren't followers of Christ yet, you don't. I'm not saying you lie to them and hide things from them. That's not what this is about. This is about just being real with them and just loving on them, and that's how they meet Jesus. That's how most people meet Jesus. I don't think there's too many people out there that have their come to Jesus moment because some guy standing on the side of the street with a Bible yelled something loud enough and somebody passing by just went, you know what? He's right. I'm not saying that does not happen. I'm sure it does. But I just don't think that's the most effective way to be a witness for the kingdom of God. So anyway, I brought up the Pokemon Go thing because that's what the business cards are going to be for. That's what the pamphlets are going to be for. We're going to let people know, hey, this is out there, and let people know who are coming. Like, hey, if you're struggling with this, we want to help. If you're not struggling with it, hey, throw the pamphlet away, whatever. But if you're struggling with this, we want you to know we're here. We're out there, and we want to help you get over this. We really do. All right, I want to talk about something. I've kind of fallen into this format, I guess, and I didn't set out to do this. I just noticed that it happened, where, I talk a little bit about something that's just happening in my life and something fun that's going on. Recently, it's been Pokemon Go, and then I talk about Reclaimer, and then I end by talking about something that's just kind of a big deal to me. And so I'm going to talk about tipping. Tipping, the act of paying someone in the service industry an extra bit of money on top of what they make regularly for a job well done. Now, I want to go ahead and say right now, as somebody who was a server for 3 years, this is how I made my living. And honestly, if I could have made a decent living doing it, I'd probably still be doing it because I loved doing it. It was a lot of fun. I got to meet a lot of very interesting people doing that. And a lot, because of the store, I worked at a Cracker Barrel. And because of the kind of people that frequent a Cracker Barrel, I had regulars. And that was really cool. Because I got to connect with some people. I didn't have a lot of regulars, but I had enough that, it was like I almost had like a little friend. Yes, that friend was paying me, but, I had maybe an acquaintance is better word for it. But anyway, so as someone who worked in that industry, let me tell you, I think it's kind of crappy that this, especially restaurants, not so much other industries, but particularly restaurants, have kind of gotten it so that they don't have to pay their wait staff. They let you, the diner, pay the wait staff. And I think that's kind of crap. But at the same time, I made way more money in tips than I would have made if Cracker Barrel were paying me a, quote, living wage and I couldn't get tips. So as a server, I like tips. But as someone who eats out, I think it's kind of a raw deal. So I'm kind of, mixed feelings on it. But anyway, I worked at this Cracker Barrel for 2.5 years, and then I worked at another one for another 6 months before I left it, because the Cracker Barrel I moved to was just miserable. That was a miserable, I don't even know why that place is still open. It was just terrible. It was up in Minnesota. It was the only one in Minnesota, and it was like the Cracker Barrel that corporate forgot was there. It really was. It was just it was garbage, is what it was. And I'm not even just talking about the restaurant itself. The people that worked there were absolutely miserable. But anyway, that's not nice of me to say. While I was there at the first Cracker Barrel, Sunday was when I made the most money, because the church crowd would come in. But honestly, it wasn't because church people tip well. Let me tell you. Church people have a reputation in restaurants for being terrible tippers. The reason why I made so much money on a Sunday was because Cracker Barrel, unlike, say, TGI Fridays or Buffalo Wild Wings or something, where you're kind of encouraged to come in and get your food and hang out, because they're expecting that you're going to buy alcohol. And that's where most restaurants make their money. The reason why you can walk into a TGI Fridays and get a pretty decent burger for relatively inexpensive. I mean, certainly not cheaper than you can make it yourself, but pretty inexpensive, is because they're counting on you coming in there and spending $30 and $40 just on alcohol. And I don't mean $30 or $40 a person. I mean like $30 or $40 for the table, in addition to the $30 or $40 you spent on food. So that's where they're making their money, and that's where the Cracker Barrel's not like that. Cracker Barrel is about getting people in and getting people out. And if you did your job right, and I did, and most of the people I worked with did, you wouldn't have a table. Any single table would be gone in less than 20 minutes. And so the reason why I made so much money on a Sunday was because the place was packed pretty much all day long because of the church crowd, and because you had them in and you had them out. If I worked at some other place that expected you to hang out, I wouldn't have made any money, and here's why. Church people notoriously tip poorly. I honestly don't know why they do. It's weird, but it's a thing. Now, there are other demographics that notoriously tip poorly. I'm not going to get into that because a lot of those demographics are by age or by race, and so I'm not going to walk down that path. But church people, that's a demographic that notoriously tips poorly. I remember I would see a tip got left on the table, but the tip was a tract. Now, I understand that some people from the northern part of the United States are not familiar with this, and I don't know if it's because churches don't do this in the north, or maybe it's just because there are so many churches in the south that people are just aware that this is a thing. But a tract, and I gotta be honest, I don't actually know if it's track, T-R-A-C-K, or if it's tract, T-R-A-C-T, because I don't know where the name came from. But it's basically a little book, real tiny, like smaller than a postcard in size, like heck, even smaller than an index card. And it's 10 pages, 10 double-sided pages or something, and it's usually got this cartoon in it, like a comic. Now, a lot of them are just text, but the good ones, and I'd say good loosely, the good ones are little comic books. And most of them are absurd. They like there's a pretty famous one actually from the 70s, I want to say, that tells a story of a girl who joins a Dungeons and Dragons group, and the dungeon master, I mean, like, all the terminology and the tract is wrong, because they've obviously never played the game and have no idea what they're talking about. But the girl who was supposed to be the dungeon master winds up telling the other people in the group that because this one girl's character died in the game, that they had to murder her. And it's this weird cultish stuff. Yeah, and then the tract was basically, if you play Dungeons & Dragons, you're going to hell. That was the message of it. Most of them are not quite that outlandish, but a lot of them are outlandish enough that they're entertaining. But I remember seeing some church folks who left those as tips with no money. And I, to spare the church that reputation, would go by and take the tract up off of other people's tables. Let me be real clear here. There's a lot of people in the service industry who need Jesus. Let me be clear about this. Your tract is not going to pay that person's electric bill. Okay? Heck, Jesus, for the most part, is not going to pay that person's electric bill. Even if that person got saved. I mean, yeah, they need the gospel, but you got to understand, these people are there working so they can live on this earth. They're not concerned about the afterlife. They need to be, and there's a time and a place for that. Their tip is not the time or place for that. All you're going to do is make them think, oh, those Jesus people, they don't want to give me any money, so they give me this worthless tract. That's what they think. That is the effect of you leaving that. Now, I don't think anybody listening to this does that. That's a worst case scenario. But let me tell you about another story. A bus of youth group kids came in to this Cracker Barrel one day. There were close to 30 of them. For a Cracker Barrel, that's a big size group. Actually, for any restaurant, 30 is a big size. And we put them back in the corner, and 2 servers split the table. Now, normally, getting a group of 30, that's a good deal. Even if you have to split it with somebody, that's a good deal. Because you're going to get half that tip, and half a tip of 30 people, especially in a restaurant that is pretty good about getting people in. Now, you're not going to get a group of 30 in and out in 20 minutes, but you can get them in and out in 45 minutes. Maybe an hour if you have some mistakes, but, 45 minutes is, that. I would think that'd be normal for a Cracker Barrel. Normally that's good. But you get not only you get a bunch of church people, but these church people are kids. They're all, 12, 13, maybe some of them are 16. That's not good. This 30 top left for these 2 waitresses $2 and some change. That was the tip they got. And I was back in the break room after the group left, and one of those ladies, I mean, she knew I was a Christian. She knew that, actually, there were a lot of us there that were Christians, because a lot of us who worked there came from the Christian college that we were going to, and this Cracker Barrel was within walking distance, like, super close to this place. And when I say within walking distance, I mean you could walk there in, 5-10 minutes. So this lady knew a bunch of us were Christians, but she said, and I do not blame her one bit for this, she said, if going to heaven means I'd have to share the afterlife with them, with people like that, I'd just soon go to hell. Now, she had no idea what she was really saying, because she doesn't believe in heaven, she doesn't believe in hell. So, to her, this was just, it was just something to say because she was angry, and it was mostly nonsense. But this is the effect that church group had on this waitress. Guys, let me tell you, when you go out to eat, especially if it's well known, like if you have advertised somehow to the restaurant that you are Christian, be it you're wearing a necklace with a Jesus fish on it, or you've got a Chris Tomlin t-shirt on. I would be willing to bet most people who aren't Christians don't know who Chris Tomlin is, but that's beside the point. Casting Crowns, there's one that I would imagine at least some people in the secular world know who they are. Or you pray, especially if you pray before your meal. Folks, you better be on your best daggone behavior, and you better tip good. especially if you're going to leave a tract. I don't have a problem with. I commonly, I'm not going to say commonly, I occasionally found a tract on a table that was accompanied by a $10 or a $20 bill. That's how you leave a tract. I still think the tract is not really doing anything because they're not going to read that thing. And even if they did, where's the discipleship? They read the thing and they go, oh, well, that's interesting. I might like to know more about that. But are they really going to go look? No. Unless you're there to follow up with them, I don't think the tract's doing anything. But if you're going to leave a tract, you leave money. And you leave a lot. Leave $20. Leave $30. Heck, leave $100. That is how you're going to reach these people if you think you're going to reach them by leaving them a tract. Another thing that church folks are usually bad about, and look, I'm not making any of this stuff up. I was there for all of this stuff. I remember dealing with church crowds that come in after church, and the cleanup in the dining room was usually kind of gnarly. I mean, I don't know what it was. I mean, maybe, and I'll admit, this might not just be because church folks are messy. This is probably because church families tend to have children. And let's be honest, folks. If church families are usually bigger than normal families. When I say normal families, secular families. Secular families tend to not have a lot of kids, if any kids at all. Whereas church religious families tend to, having big families is a big part. Now, nothing like, say, the Duggards from that family that's on A Billion Kids and Counting on TLC, whatever that show is. But, it's not unusual to find a family that goes to church and there's the mom and dad and 4 or 5 children. So, and odds are one of those kids is going to be a baby, and babies are messy. And so that certainly could be part of it, but there's the perception that church families that come to restaurants are messy. And again, I'm not necessarily sure that there's anything that can be done about that, but let me tell you, if you make a mess, a good way to make that server and that busboy forget, or at the very least, maybe not forget about the mess, but not be quite so aggravated about the mess, is to leave a big tip. So, folks, when you go to restaurants, you have an opportunity to witness to the people that you're dealing with. You have a opportunity to be a witness for Christ, and you can either be a good one or you can be a bad one. And unfortunately, in my experience, most of us are bad ones. And I'm speaking to myself too. I wouldn't be saying this if I didn't think I needed work. It's a very real thing. So if you're gonna go out, first of all, let's say you look at your budget and you go, yeah, I got money to go to Ruby Tuesday. Well, if you don't have money to leave at least, a $5 or $10 tip, then no, you don't have the money in your budget to go out. Just because tipping is optional legally doesn't mean that you get to, I've got $40 I can spend on dinner, and then you spend $39 of it on food and drink. That's not acceptable. You need to tip, especially because you're going to be a witness. And now I'm going to say something that, might sound a little bit crazy, but Christians, if you're going to go out there and you're going to go out to eat and you're not going to tip, do me a favor. Don't pray before your meal. Do not give that restaurant any indication whatsoever that you're saved. If you've got a Jesus fish sticker on your car, take it off. If you're wearing a Stephen Curtis Chapman t-shirt, change it. If you're planning on going in there and not tipping, please do the rest of us a favor and don't let anyone in that restaurant know that you're saved. That's all I ask. All right, so that's my rant about tipping. I should point out, so the reason why I got off on this is not because I had an experience with this lately, because I haven't waited in tables in, almost 10 years. But I found a tract, like a week or two ago, maybe longer than that, in a bathroom at Walmart. And I just found it funny, and it made me think of that, so I want to talk about that. All right, let's see. Been talking now for 40 minutes. Let's move on to some plugs. So, of course, I've got a Patreon campaign, which you can contribute to. I've changed the URL. The Patreon campaign, I did not know I could get a custom URL for this. So that's good. So the Patreon campaign is now patreon.com/AboveParProductions. That'll be down in the show notes for you. I guess I need to update the show notes from my other episodes because the link that's in there probably doesn't work anymore. Yeah, if you want to support this show, if you want to support the Reclaimer Ministry or anything else that I'm doing, that's where you do that. But another way that you can support me, I wrote a children's book many years ago. Many years ago. And, I say that like it's been 50, and it's been less than 10, so let's chill out on the minis there, Patrick. Some years ago, I wrote a book. It's a children's book. I did it to raise money for a fundraiser. Now, I and that fundraiser had a falling out, and looking back on it, I really should have seen that coming because the people who were involved in it, I don't know that they ever had any real intention of doing what it was that they claimed they were going to be doing. But anyway, so, I've got this book, and for a while I didn't know what to do with it, because I was like, I wrote the book for the charity, and it almost felt wrong to repurpose it, because it felt like I was stealing money from this charity that doesn't exist. That's how ridiculous this is. So, but I made a couple of changes to make myself feel better, and kind of made a second edition of it, and that way I could go, there, this is a new book, even though it's really not. But it's called A Nickel, a Bucket, and a Cheeseburger, and you can buy it for, I should know this. I'm gonna look it up on Amazon because it's on. I do it through a little group called Create Space. Here we go. Yeah, Create Space is a publishing tool that Amazon uses for people like me who can't go get a publishing deal. Because publishing deals involve, you ordering hundreds of books, maybe even thousands of books, and then you have to drive around and sell them somehow. And so that's just not on the cards for me because I can't afford that. But doing it this way, Amazon, or rather CreateSpace, which is owned by Amazon, they print the book as it gets ordered. So you can't. It means that the printing cost is a little bit more than if I were to have, several hundred printed. But it also means I only have to pay for a book that gets printed when one gets ordered. And what happens is Amazon just keeps a cut to pay for the printing. They also keep a cut, because they're a store and they have to make money. And, just like they keep a cut of everything that they sell on their website because that's how they make money. That's how this works. So it's $10. I'm fairly certain that I get to keep about $2 of that. It might be $1.50. I don't remember. It's not a huge amount of money, and I understand that sounds like, man, I pay $10 for this thing and you only get $1.50. Yeah, but that's fundraising. That's how this works. So anyway, it's about a kid who he runs into some situations where he learns about sharing. And my sister-in-law, Kyra Ryan, she illustrated it. It's really, really nice looking, and it's unique. But I like it. In fact, the pictures are what make this book. The story itself, I kind of whipped up, over the course of a day or two. But these paintings, she hand painted everything, and then I had them all scanned in. The paintings they're pretty fantastic, and it took her several months of very hard work to do this, and her hand cramping up because she didn't have a proper easel and all this other stuff. But it's it's a great little book, if I do say so myself. So anyway, that's a nickel, a bucket, and a cheeseburger. I'll put the link in Amazon. I'm also going to put the link. You can order it directly from CreateSpace if you want to. And when you do that, all you pay for, or all I pay for, is for CreateSpace to print it. I don't actually have to pay Amazon anything because Amazon wasn't involved, even though they were. It's weird. So I actually get to keep more of the money that way. So that's a way. And by the way, I give for every book that I sell, and I've sold like 10 of these things, so it's not like I sell a whole lot. But for every book that I sell, I give my sister-in-law some of that money because she deserves it. She put a lot of time and energy into this. So even though she did it for me for free, I am paying her for this because that's the right thing to do. And if you're working with an artist out there, you should pay them. So yeah, I'm gonna put that link for Amazon and for CreateSpace. Please, if you want to buy it from CreateSpace because I get to keep more of the money. But I totally understand if you're like, well, it's easy for me to buy it from Amazon, and I have Prime, so I get it shipped to me for free and in 2 days, and I get that. So I'm not gonna create a big stink about that. So that'll be down there, and maybe I'll somewhere I'll make some of the artwork available for you to look at, because that would be something that you might want to look at. Okay, anyway, I'm losing track here. I wanted to read something to y'all before I should have put this in when I was talking about Reclaimer. So a friend of mine shared this on Facebook, and it says, he tagged me in it. It says, "And you say God can't use you? Jacob was a cheater. Peter had a temper. David had an affair. Noah got drunk." I mean, yeah, that's a sin, but that seems kind of minor. Jonah ran from God. Paul was a murderer. Gideon was insecure. That's not a sin. That's just Gideon being goofy. Miriam was a gossip. Martha was a warrior. Thomas was a doubter. Sarah was impatient. Elijah was moody. Moses stuttered. Zacchaeus was short. Abraham was old. Lazarus was dead. Okay, so this isn't a list of sins. It's just a list of ways in which these people were less than stellar human beings. Anyway, it's just pointing out that, just because you're not perfect doesn't mean God can't or won't use you. In fact, I would almost say that the fact that you're not perfect is a reason God will use you. So, folks, if you're out there and you think, man, I can't be of any use to God, well, you're wrong. You can be. You just have to be paying attention to what it is God wants you to do. All right, back on track. So, Caspian Quest, the quest to gain custody of my son, is still on. I don't have a whole lot of updates for you. Everybody here knows what it's about. It's about me getting custody of my 7-year-old son from my first wife. The reason not being because of anything that my first wife has done. My first wife is, for the most part, a pleasant human being, and she's not a terrible mom. She's not hitting him or anything like that. She's not necessarily dangerous for my son to be around. That's not it. And it's not because I want to punish her for divorcing me. That's also not it. It is because the people that she hangs around with are not just a horrible influence on her, but a horrible influence on my son. They're part of a church, per se, I guess you could say, but it's more like a cult. And I was in it. Folks, I was in it. I'm not just saying this because, I've got some chip on my shoulder about it. I'm saying this because it's true, because I was in it. It wasn't focused on God. It was focused on the pastor of that church and just doing anything and everything that he said. And that's actually part of what led to the events that led to my divorce, was that there was no support in that church unless you were on board with whatever it is they wanted you to do. And none of it was necessarily biblically based. It was just, this guy is he's the grand poobah of everything, and you either agree with him or you're not saved. In fact, they've told me, Patrick, you're not a Christian. And the reason being that I didn't agree with a lot of their interpretations of things. But anyway, so they encouraged, after everything that happened between my ex-wife and I, she was actually going to stick it out, the marriage. She wanted to make it work. She said she made a promise to love me no matter what. And we were in counseling, and actually, I'm not going to say counseling was going fantastic, but it was going well, and I definitely saw where the marriage was going to be saved. Through grace and mercy and forgiveness, and we were going to heal, and we were going to come out a stronger couple, a stronger married couple for it. And suddenly, she decided she wasn't coming anymore, and it's because the people in that cult told her to stop coming. They told her that I was a terrible person. They told her that I was a terrible father and a terrible husband. And you know what? I wasn't an awesome father, and I certainly wasn't an awesome husband. But they told her that I was never going to be better, and I was good for nothing, and that they told her I wasn't a Christian, and that because of that, she should leave me. Which is kind of funny, because Scripture actually tells you that if you find yourself married to someone who's not a Christian, and that person wants to stay married to you, that you're not to divorce them. So by their logic, if I'm not saved, it was actually a sin for her to leave me. But anyway, I'm just applying their logic to it. I am a Christian, and it's not like that verse even applied to us. But that's the situation. She hangs out with them, and she lets these people babysit my child, and I have no idea what they're saying to him behind my back, but I know what they say to her behind my back. So anyway, like I said, this is about him being in an environment that is conducive to his spiritual growth, and he's just going to grow up to be spiritually dead if he's around those people, because I was spiritually dead when I was in that group, and my ex-wife is that way as well, and I feel really bad for her, and honestly, if I could do anything to help her, I would. But I'm not married to her anymore because she didn't want me to be, and so I've got to accept the fact that she's not my responsibility anymore, and I've given her up to God. There's nothing I can do for her anymore, and even if there was something that I thought I could do for her, she would never receive it from me, and I don't blame her. I mean, what I did to her was awful and horrible, and if I was her, I wouldn't receive anything well from me either. So it's not like I'm blaming her. I did that. But it's like I said, this isn't about her. This is about getting him away from those people. And you know what? I kind of think that if I can get sole custody of him, that she'll move. She'll either move back to where she's from, or maybe she'll even move down here to be part of his life, and maybe she'll get away from those people. Now, that's not the primary goal here. Like I said, she's not my responsibility anymore, and there's nothing I can do for her, so I don't want anyone thinking that I've got this crazy idea that if I can get custody of Caspian, that I will somehow save her through that. That's not what this is about. It would be nice if it happened, but I'm not counting on it. It would just be a nice side effect. This is about Caspian. This is about Caspian being in an environment around his father and around my wife, who loves him as if he were her own. So yeah, if you're interested at all in helping us with that, and I get it, the custody battles, not only are they ugly, but they're not something that people want to be a part of. And so if you don't want to be a part of it, if you want to have nothing to do with it, I get that. I get it. I'm not going to hold that against you at all. But if you are interested in it, please pray for us. Please pray that God's will would be done in this. Pray that if it's not God's will for this to happen, that he would show me and that I would quit pursuing it. Because I don't want to be outside God's will. As much as I want my son, I do not want to be outside God's will, because nothing good ever comes from being outside the will of God. But I do believe this is the will of God, so please pray that God would see this through, that God would provide us the means to do this. And if he wants you to contribute to that, go to gofundme.com/CaspianQuest. And you can find all the information you need about that. If you want to help with us, but you can't donate or you can't contribute financially, pray about it and share it with your friends. Tweet it, put it up on Facebook, whatever it is you got to do. I update it fairly regularly with little videos and pictures, so even if you just want to see pictures of my cute kid, you can find those there. He's the best. So anyway, it's been about 55 minutes since I started recording, so we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Let me pray us out, and then I'll do my typical plugs. So here we go. Father God, you are great and mighty and holy and merciful and faithful and amazing and all-powerful, and nothing or no one compares to you. Everything that gets compared to you is like filthy rags. It's like dirt. It's like nothing. Father, thank you so much for the people that listen to this show that you've brought here, that found it, whether it's because they know me and they're listening to it, or because they know someone who listens to it and they found it, or maybe they just stumbled on it on YouTube. Maybe they were looking for help and they found this show on YouTube. Thank you so much that you brought them here, and God, I ask that this show would help people, that this show would be a blessing to someone, that this show would further your kingdom somehow, even if I don't know how, and even if I never see it. It's not about me getting the glory or anything like that. This is all for you, Father. I do this because I believe you want me to, and I do this because I hope and pray that it brings glory to you. God, please bless Reclaimer. Bless this ministry that you have set me out to do. Bless me and the other people out there who want to see pornography ended in the United States and ended in the world. Let us be warriors. Let us be diligent about this. Let us not be passive in this. Let us go out and find people who are struggling with pornography and help them, instead of relying on them to come find us so that they can get help. Father, I want you to bless my son, Caspian, whether he remains here with me somehow, or he returns back to Tennessee and he stays there forever, wherever he is. I want you to be in his life, and I want you to protect him, and protect him from the lies that he's hearing every day from the folks that he's around. Protect him from the lies that the world is telling him, and reveal yourself to him in a mighty way, and let it be known in his life that you are the one true God and that there is no one else. I guess that's it, Father. Thank you so much for everything that you do, and everything that you have done, and everything that you're going to do. And I come before you, and I present these things to you in the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen. All right, plugs. Actually, if you go to my Facebook page, which is facebook.com/aboveparproductions, it's with an S. The link is in the show notes. I'd updated my cover photo. It's not gorgeous or anything, but it looks like I kind of knew what I was doing. And there you'll find the information about the other things that I do. You'll find information about Original Gamers Podcast. You'll find information about this show, about my website, about Reclaimer, about the Patreon campaign, about CrossForge Gaming. You'll find all that there in the cover photo. From the Facebook page, you can get to just about everywhere. You can find me on Twitter at Patrick Proper. Please tweet at me. Ask me any questions. If you're struggling with pornography and you want to know how to get help, I am all ears. I realize Twitter's kind of a public way to do that, but there's ways to get a hold of me. If you look hard enough at Facebook and Twitter. I also have a Twitch channel, twitch.tv/HugeCowPatty. I have not streamed to it in a while, and like I said yesterday, I'm probably not going to get to stream to it until after Caspian returns to Tennessee, and I'll have more time to be able to do that. It is Thursday. I've been doing one of these every single day, and like I said, I don't have a schedule yet. I was kind of thinking maybe I would do it 5 times a week, but now I'm thinking maybe I'll do it 4 times a week, Monday through Thursday, because my Fridays are usually busy, and that's also when I record the Original Gamers Podcast, so that's probably what I'm going to shoot for. You guys check this show out Monday through Thursday on YouTube, and if I can eventually get it on a audio-only platform, I will. And then Friday, record the Original Gamers Podcast, which goes live every Monday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern. Yeah, 9 a.m. Eastern is when that goes live. No, that's not right. It's 11 a.m. Eastern, because it's 8 a.m. Pacific. Anyway, it's Monday. Just check it out. You can find that at ogcast.podbean.com. This week we are playing Kingdom Hearts. And next week, who knows? We actually play a game at the end of every episode. We play 20 questions, and it's my week to pick, and I know what game we're playing, but none of you do, and you'll just have to find out Monday. And even my partners don't know. They'll find out tomorrow when we record. So we have a lot of fun doing that. Anyway, thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for praying. If you have contributed to this financially at all, thank you for doing that. I love you guys. Keep praying. Keep, going out there and banging that drum for eliminating pornography in this country. We're going to do it. We're going to fight this. We're going to beat this thing. Porn is not bigger than Jesus. Jesus is so much bigger than porn. So, and you know what? Jesus is even bigger than Pokemon Go, which is apparently now bigger than porn. So, anyway, I love you guys. Thank you so much for listening. And check out Original Gamers Podcast. And I will see you on this show Monday. Have a good weekend.